All right, well, ready to start. Thanks for the patience. Right, can you guys see the screen? All right, yep. So here are the meeting minutes. Welcome to our Meshery build and release meeting on Thursday, March 14th. And we have some topics. Let me just share the link to our meeting minutes in the chat. So everyone can enter their name. But before we start, is there any new member that's joined for the first time here in this meeting or to any of the Meshery meeting Zoom calls? Can feel free to present yourself, say hi. Nope. All right. Is there any other topic anyone wants to add? Like, feel free to add to our agenda items, and yep. Glad to see Sangram and Deepak. Thanks, who's there.
Sangram, is it your first time joining one of the Meshery calls, or have you joined previously?
The first time on this channel, I mean on the CI, not the first time on Meshery though.
Okay. Yeah, I remember like you had a PR on tutorial, right? The tutorial on visualizing, I guess.
Yeah.
And if I'm not wrong, your area of interest matches with like DevOps and DevOps centric rules, right?
So I am so just to give a background, I'm usually involved in designing Kubernetes installations. Primarily, that's where I begin with as a cloud architect, and then I'm usually presenting the design to clients, customers, and as I was saying, sometimes the customers are non-technical and they need a visual way to understand not just what's happening cluster-wise, but also how the application is inside, like how many pods and all of that. So usually we use draw.io or something like that, but then I stumbled upon Meshery when I was doing some other research around CNCF, and this is more integrated and lets you control application deployment through a visual approach. That's where I come in to Meshery. But yes, I mean, as part of the Kubernetes installation, there's always DevOps and there's Helm charts that we use to deploy applications, ingress controllers and whatnot. So I nominated, or I said, Lee, that I'd be interested in in the Meshery staging environment. That was one of the agenda
Yes.
items, and that's basically why I'm here, also to get a hang of what happens in the CI meetings, right? But the bullet point number 7 is where my area of interest lies. I'm no longer a code developer though. I can fix things here and there, but I've been off code development for over a decade now. So, but yeah, I understand development, code, logic, and all of that to an extent that I won't be out of place. But like I said, my main thing is all about that clusters and all of that. That's where I said number 7 looks interesting to me, so I'll see if I can help you guys with that.
Nice. Is there a specific requirements for this, like where to deploy it? We can ask Lee, but
I
this
have
is all he.
no clue. Maybe Lee knows about it. I have no
Okay.
idea.
So basically, the idea for like number 7 has been like we have like 2 of the Equinix bare metal machines provisioned by CNCF. So,
Mhm.
and in one of the node, we have been like we have been using it as a Kubernetes node, and on the second node, we have like deployed Meshery deployment, which is based on like Docker Compose. So it could be that we will utilize the first node, the first Equinix bare metal, or we could ask CNCF for another infrastructure. Recently, like they had done program of like OCI credits, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. So we can basically request some of the credits from there and use that as a staging environment. So yeah, these are two available options.
Yeah, and what I remember from the discussion is that we want to move away from a Docker-based,
Yeah.
Meshery environment to a more Kubernetes native, like deploy Meshery using Helm chart. And I understand the
Yes.
Helm chart needs a bit of review, and when we start deploying the Helm chart, maybe we find out issues. So seven kind of caters to a lot of these things.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, like previously,
Mhm.
we tried deploying Meshery as full Kubernetes via Helm chart, but we faced issues where like when some users like were testing their like so they were testing their designs on Playground, so accidentally they installed Cilium service mesh or any service mesh or deployed some of the designs, so it messed up the networking. So that was, and we were like constantly facing these issues of like the networking getting messed up inside the Kubernetes. So and we use Weave as a CNI just for information. So this was the primary reason for like moving away from Kubernetes to Docker Compose, because we didn't had much of the resources or people to like actively make the Kubernetes deployment more robust.
So just to confirm, maybe this is not right, but would you be able to provide Equinix info to Sangram? Is that
Yeah,
right?
I can.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, you can also share some links over here, but I'm not sure what's, public, we can share with everyone, but yeah.
Yeah,
And
so I think like he needs to like go on with like some signing of NDA or something, but more or less I will
yeah.
share the
Mm.
like the current setup of Playground and Equinix.
NDA. So he needs to sign an NDA so he can get this access, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yep. So that'll make sure that happens. There's several other tasks besides the seventh one. We can go over them, but maybe we should go over our standing agenda first. Or does anyone has anything like really urgent they want to get feedback on? Can also cover that first. But if not, we'll just cover the Meshery test plan. Let me just open that up very quickly. All right. So yeah, if we see, also let me share the link too. Maybe this is a good, yeah, this one. I'll share a link in the chat. So this is Meshery test plan. Yep. So this is our test plan where we define different test scenarios, test cases of things we should test. And let me just zoom back a bit. Yep, there. So as we can see, we have information of what's covered in end-to-end tests and in integration tests. So it looks like for the integration test, an X means yes, apparently. And no means no. And in the end-to-end part, it's yes or no. We're currently in steps of moving our end-to-end test from Cypress over to Playwright. I'm working on the proof of concept. I'm hoping to have something working as soon as possible. But yeah, these are the tests by test group, component under test, platform, Docker, Kubernetes. If it's for a specific service mesh, the installation would not cover a specific mesh initially, but and the test scenarios. So the B0.7.0 would cover these. And the automated test builds is a group of links where we specify which repository We have these workflows, how they run, like the cadence or what triggers them. If there's a prerequisites and some other information like area under test or under build, if it building something, and what each of these run. Sometimes it's a bit evident, like build in previous site, we'll build some Meshery docs. But sometimes it's not that evident. And the type of test is what's the intent or the objective of these. If it's a smoke test, integration, end-to-end, and so on. Unit tests as well for our Golang. As we can see, the Meshery repo has Golang backend. There's an XJS a front end with React. And not sure if anyone wants to add anything else. We can just
Just a question, like since we are discussing UI test, so like I saw like previously you had a POC for like Playwright. So anything update, or if you want to discuss on?
Oh yeah, good point. Let me cover that. Yes, I have something. This is the one. Yeah. So Aha. So here is the issue. I'll add links to this in the meeting minutes in a while. Yeah. So there are some issues with the Cypress. Just to give context to everyone, Cypress tool which we're currently using. We have some docs around it, but there are some difficulties. To be honest, I never talked to someone who had this problem. Maybe it's just no one knew how to start or had no knowledge. So I'm a bit hesitant on that. But the other part, complex debugging, I agree with that. There's some behaviors in the Meshery app we built, which every contributor and even whoever wants to use it, users, well, it just behaves a bit different. So there were some defaults that Cypress has that weren't too friendly to how the app behaves when it's just built for the first time, since it's server side rendering and it's to build the first time it's get accessed, and some other problems. The brittleness, yeah, that I account that mainly to some of the tests. They interacted a lot with the like an integration test. So a developer or whoever uses the test would need to update some mock data. So at least because we're like in pre V1 of Meshery, there's a lot of changes going in the backend. And then so this would cause like a lot of breakages because the front end would change, but then the mock data wouldn't change at all. So yeah, a lot of brittleness because of that and some other factors. It'd be nice to do what's the term? A postmortem, like to really analyze when things go wrong. There's some issues created, but we haven't consolidated that. But I propose we do that moving forward, like when there's issues, whether it's DevOps tasks, in end-to-end test failing, some other issues. So we learn from that, and then yeah. So, but yeah, mostly is being attributed to the tool. So we're going to other alternatives, and yeah, going back to the POC. I got a working test, and maybe this is not a best practice, but I need to move this over to a secret defined in the measure repo. I'll check because I'm not sure if I have permissions. I might have. So, but yeah, as we can see over here, let me just. Yeah, this is the setup. So the idea of having a setup um, function or like a callback defined with the playwright export called setup is that anything that depends on this file. So these are called, let me see where I can find it, projects. Just move over to here. You see projects, yeah. So setup is the first one. Every .setup file, so auth.setup or anything, this would run when the setup project runs, and then there's a dependency. Every project that depends on that will run that first. So that's how we define some kind of dependency or things like prerequisites we need to as a user authentication. So here we define the project itself. And yeah, that's kind of it. Yeah, go ahead, please.
So like the test on like Chromium, Firefox, or different engines like happens parallelly or like sequentially, or what's the flow like?
Good question. Let me just get the project up. I'll do it quickly so we can see how that looks like. Where are, just a sec. I think it's this one, but let me double check. Oh, this is not the one. Stories. Yep, I'll just open it up on a new. What is that? Just a sec. Layer 5, yeah, here. Okay, so it should be over here. Let me just pull it up. Control. Oh, in the right. Okay, this is the wrong folder. Oh no, it's the right one. It's just. So UI. Not sure why this is showing something else, but E2E, yep. So here it is. So in order to run the test, it's very simple. We just need to go to the package JSON. We have a set of some new scripts. So we would run playwright UI debug test. Okay, wrong folder, sorry.
Or maybe like you can like update on the questions, whatever queries that I asked, like you can later on answer them inside the meeting minute itself so that we can proceed
Sure.
with.
Yeah, let's move on. Yeah. So basically, yeah, you choose the browser when you run the tests, and this, yeah. So that's the short answer. So as you can see, devices Chrome. Yep. But yeah, going back to the code, very simple. So this would authenticate because this goes to the root path. Gets well, yeah, this actually chooses the provider. So it chooses Meshery and then waits for the URL. This is needed only because this is like a cross-domain route redirecting. So usually this wouldn't be needed. But there's several redirects, and just to make sure there's no timeout, this was added. And then there's a page locator. We probably need to add some specific data test IDs. But yeah, for now, this is what it looks for. And it enters the user email and password. Then it gets the sign in button, clicks it, and then it expects for the header to say dashboard to be visible. And then this is the special part where we store the state in an auth file. So this auth file, if we look over here, it's specific path file that's not supposed to be part of our repository. So it should be ignored. It's already in the git ignore. Yep, this one. And then after that, there's a test that looks for the extensions in the user preferences. So there's a before each define over here. so that every test inside this spec does that for before running each test. And then this just checks for the extension legend, maybe something very simple, but it's good to know that the page loads. So it would fail. And then if it breaks, we would know very simply, very easily that the extensions section is not visible. That means there's something that avoided it to render, which means that if we change the name of the label, we would need to go and update this test. Then there's some other test to deactivate the Meshery catalog content. And
And one thing, like
Mhm.
if some of the test fails, like how does the error log looks like, or how that exception looks like? Like if you, like it is it easily parsable, or
I didn't set up the CI yet, but I plan to do it next. To answer that question, if you run in debug, it would look mostly like this. So we run this one. So this was opened by the Playwright UI debug, by this one, Playwright UI debug test. So it's a custom script you find here. So we're passing the UI flag so that Playwright test opens this opens in UI mode. So there's some problem going to. Oh yeah, I don't have. Oh sorry, I do not have the local Meshery running. So yeah, that's why this fails. But yeah, a failure would look like this with an X, and omitted steps look like this. So yeah, this answers how how the debug mode works. But the Playwright has several different what's the name, like runners. So if you look at the Playwright config, let me see where that the reporters. So right now this is using HTML, but if you look over here, there's some docs about which reporters there are. So there's several. We would use the dot. So the dot reporter is supposed to be used for CI. Let me try implement that. Just use it and also the workflow. Add a workflow so I can share next meeting, or can just share some updates in the PR. Okay. So any other questions? This is how it looks like to wait for a response. So in this case, this is a synchronous communication. The need of using this is because we're posting, right? So maybe I'm wrong, but I expect there still be posts, right, when user uploads things, unless there's some GraphQL for that too, for like a mutation or something. But yeah, we can take a look and look for other ways of waiting, because the idea is that if this is not viable, like feasible for us to do, the other alternative is to wait for UI changes or URL, like route changes in the browser address bar, uh, so that we wait so that the test is we're able to synchronize the test with the application. Like it shouldn't act until the post is done in this case, right? But I know that depending on other areas, it's probable that this is not a good idea because there's no post being made. There's some other, like a GraphQL subscription, a like sending like a mutation, right? But I'm not, and I can't remember how that works in some other pages right now. So yeah, well, we can look for other alternatives. And but yeah, this is how this would actually await for that request, get the response, and then check for it to be 200. And then there's the response body. Yeah, there it checks for a specific false in the catalog content. So that actually checks that it worked, right? Disabling the catalog content.
yeah,
And
like it is like very helpful. Like since we have like some of the playwright tests being going on and everything. So yeah, it's nice to see this. And since like we have Sangram, like who is like wake up for our call, especially for this call, for like because he's interested in like cloud deployment, and I see like Deepak has also questions about regarding security part in workflow. So maybe we
Let's move
can
back
switch
to,
on. Yeah.
yes, sure, sounds good. So
But yeah, like
then,
nice to see this
thank you.
progress.
Sure, thanks. Yep, need to wrap that up. I'll do it as fast as possible. So yeah, any questions about this? There's a link to a this is for anyone who doesn't know, it's a discussion forum. So there we can have further communications.
So like I had a question. I was trying the sixth agenda which we mentioned,
Mhm. Would
like
you like to share
exporting
anything or
Prometheus service.
just go ahead, please? So
I
6
had
one.
some questions. I probably share now.
Sure, go ahead.
So like
What are your
I set up
questions?
Prometheus. I first used Kubernetes. I set up a Kubernetes cluster and then deployed the Meshery using the Meshery shell command, and then I also deployed Prometheus. And I was using a service monitor. So the service which was deployed by Meshery, it was a load balancer type. So like I can't figure out like for like monitoring the Meshery service, like which type of node exporter, because the Meshery service is not being able to export the metrics.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anyone has an
Like which
answer?
type of
So
so
what's can you repeat the question? What's the type of what?
what's the type of exporter we need to use for the metrics to be exposed to uh, Prometheus?
I think what
It-
Uzair had mentioned earlier, it's just the standard, what is it, cube prom stack, I think is what it's.
Yeah, the kubeprompt and
Yes.
the API server metrics, like it is not being able to export the metrics of the Meshery service.
Yeah, yeah, it probably won't. So Meshery, so if you look at the diagram that's been pointed out inside of the Meshery architecture deck, Meshery, the playground that you're working within, Meshery playground, actually we should probably bring up that architecture deck. This will be a good explanation for others here, have an understanding of it.
Would you like to share or should
Yeah,
I?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, does anybody else have it up? Oh, there it is. Yeah, Uzair's shared a link to it. Here is.
Thank you.
And and feel free to take back the share at any moment. If you all train your eyes toward the deck, in the deck there is, well, toward the bottom, I guess it's slide right around right where Uzair said it was. Here, hey, this is the playground deployment. So when you go to playground.meshery.io, this is hosted inside of the quote unquote CNCF lab. But it run. This is so for Sangram. What I'm about to say will be quite relevant to your objective of deploying the canonical remote provider, Meshery Cloud. Having some of this info will help. So I'm gonna hit two things at once. One, in part because this will be a review for Shubham, but it'll be helpful for Sangram. Sangram, are you there? Did you? I only ask because
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good. All right. Well, hey, so the CNCF has a partnership with Equinix, Equinix Metal, and so we benefit from, as a project, we benefit from being able to use some of those bare metal servers. So we're using two bare metal servers to run, to run the playground. I think that's the third time I've said this. There are two servers. One is just a Docker host. That server name is Meshery 01. The other one is a single node Kubernetes cluster. When you're using the playground and you've signed into Meshery and you're creating designs, you click deploy, everyone should at least have one deployment target, which is the playground Kubernetes cluster. I think for many of us, it might say playground here. Does it say playground for any of you or no?
No, I have not seen playground. I have always seen like Kubernetes.
Oh, it says that. Okay. Well, it's at some point maybe we'll get that renamed so it's a little more evident to all of us. But anyway, this is that second server, Meshery 02. This is the private IP address 10.65.18.1, and it's hitting the Kube API on 6.4.4.3. Oh, really? Is that so? Oh, that is so. 10.65.18.1. Okay. And Kube API is on 6.4.4.3 TCP. Probably IPv4, or no, it is IPv4. Yeah. That was bad networking jokes. This is the layout of that deployment. When you deploy infrastructure here, like, Prometheus server, and you want to expose its endpoint external to the cluster, here's what the networking looks like. This particular cluster is shut off from the world. It's entirely too easy to, so Deepak was asking about some security related questions. This isn't the answer to his specific question, but part of the way that we end up securing the project is by not exposing this directly to the internet.
So there needs to be some kind of tunnel.
Yeah, and so Meshery as this management software is providing that bridge, so to speak. So it provides you that view to Kubernetes. Now it is capable of interfacing with Kube API, and as such, you can do things like, here's the currently running sample apps and whatever people have deployed. It is capable of, well, establishing web-based terminal sessions to containers, to pods. And so but Meshery, so what I'm trying to say is Meshery is that bridge to that Kubernetes cluster. You don't access the cluster directly, you access it through Meshery. Good. The type of networking that's being used right now, Uzair, do you want to speak to that? It's to expose a service external to this cluster. What's being done is there isn't local load balancing support this is a Ubuntu OS that's being run. It's got Kubernetes installed with, I think, WeaveNet as networking. And it doesn't have, what's that popular, Metal LB? It doesn't have Metal LB installed or load balancing support installed for services of type load balancer. We can go configure that. At the moment, it's not necessary, as you can, there's a few other ways to expose services external to the Kubernetes cluster. One of the ways in which it's being done right now is just using an ingress controller. I think Uzair, the one that you're using is Nginx, and with a few ingress. Yes. So an ingress controller combined with node port as the service networking type for the service you want to expose. Have you tried that, Shubham?
Like I was trying to set up the Prometheus monitoring. I didn't do it with the ingress with the node port type. So I need to look into it once.
Okay. Sangram, does that make sense? This deployment here?
Yeah, and just to add to that, in fact, when I was initially getting a hang of the playground, I also had that load balancer question, so yeah, I mean, we currently don't have that. So if you want to test something from the external world, it's a node port option at the moment.
Yeah, we're in need of adding a note in probably a couple of places, minimally in the FAQs on play.meshery.io. This is something that any of you can do, and it would be helpful if you did. On this site, there's a site that you've probably seen. It's just 1 page long, and but it has some FAQs down here, like, hey, if I work inside this environment and I create some cool infrastructure designs, am I going to lose those? Or if I make a deployment, is that going to stick around? And what type of networking is supported? That's a question that we can answer right here. Do you need to know HTML and React and everything to do that? Nope. Yeah, it was just. Is there any one of you that wants to sign up to do that?
You can add me in. I'm interested in the documentation part of it, so sure.
Sangram, this is not you, is it? No. I'll just force you to tell the world your email address. That's what I'll do. Wait, maybe I shouldn't do that. Anyway, yeah, please do. There's a GitHub repo called, the repo name is called Play. And so,
okay,
you don't have to
Layer 5 Play?
Meshery Play.
Meshery Play. Cool.
And thanks for that. So good. In part, this helps answer Shubham's question. I think one of the next topics we had was, a series of DevOps related tasks that we're just in need of getting done. And Mario was sharing those a little bit ago. I'll bring them back up just for context. And a couple of folks raised their hand. Sangram is one of them. And so he's here because let's talk about one of those. So Sangram was saying, hey, I know it's just like hey, as a starting point, I'll jump in here. Or we'll see if it's a starting point, or maybe it's an ending point. But he was saying, hey, that thing Meshery Cloud, I'll give it a shot. We have so Meshery Cloud is it is a separate component of what can be a Meshery deployment.
Yeah. That's what comes from layer 5. It's kind of a SaaS version of Meshery.
Yeah, very excellent.
It's a provider, so it's not like a custom Meshery. It integrates with Meshery because it gives extra features, right?
Yeah, that's a great distinction to make. And it's here's a diagram that attempts to offer that slight clarification, which is to say, that cloud component, that remote provider component, is not an instance of Meshery. Rather, you deploy Meshery wherever you want to. And if you would like to also deploy, there's a built-in provider, meaning like providers can offer up different things, but like identity is a core piece of what a provider might give you. And so there's a lack of these two components integrate with one another, and they don't overlap in the sense that the cloud instance is not actually running another instance of Meshery, which is what Mario was saying. Now, why am I at a loss for concisely discussing this? So there's a Helm chart for deploying the layer 5 or Meshery cloud. We end up referring to it like we called it Meshery cloud some long time ago, and it is a layer 5 capability that we host and run and manage for everyone for free. So you sign up and you get accounts and you get to store all you get to do everything you can do with what it gives you today. You might hear me refer to it as layer 5 cloud in part because I know at some point, if we keep calling it Meshery cloud, at some point it'll get confusing, but it'll
It does
also,
sound like SaaS version of Meshery. You're right.
yeah,
He's right.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
There's one other thing to convey. So then, all right, well, what's inside this gray box here? So is it just a container, just the layer 5 cloud that's just a container, right? Well, no, it's more like an Uzer. I don't know if you want to speak to this. People might enjoy hearing someone else's voice other than mine.
Yeah, so basically like Meshery has a concept of like extension points. So provider is one such extension points, and this is where like layer 5 cloud comes in. It fills in the whole of one of the provider extension point. So there by default Meshery ships is a default provider, which is like a non-provider, which doesn't guarantee like persistence and everything. It's just an in transient storage. It acts as a transient storage. But for like if you want like persistence, identity, and couple of extensions more, such that mesh map and additional features of like multi-tenancy and everything, collaboration and everything, layer 5 cloud provides that features as an extension.
Oops. Yeah, this is a highly broken out diagram that might be, I don't know, hopefully it's not too confusing. Yep, so you deploy Meshery, as many Meshery servers as you want to, add up, you can plug in adapters or other plugins. If you, as a user, when you authenticate to that instance of Meshery server, you are prompted with a choice right at the start. Hey, do you want to sign into a provider? If you do, great, you'll have some authentication interaction with that remote provider. And depending upon what that remote provider, all that it offers, maybe you'll get a bunch of plugins with that, along with that. Okay, so the internals of layer 5 cloud are relatively simplistic in nature. It is a 4 container deployment. There is a set of, there's a server, a Meshery cloud server written in Golang. And that container has a Golang server and a React app. And it has a UI. So great. So but it doesn't, we didn't write our own identity provider. Rather, there are 2 other containers that help provide identity. And so I'm going to not go into the specifics because it just doesn't matter at this very moment, but Sangram, you'll see that as you go through this. And then there's the 4th container is a Postgres database, so that all of the user records and identities and all the designs that people create and can all be cataloged or persisted. Sangram, I'm going to pause there, Sangram, and ask if there's like, so there's a simple Helm chart that was just only recently created. It's been deployed a few times, but I'm sure that it's got a hang up or two, or we have yet to automate the ongoing publishing of that Helm chart. And here this week that will happen. Maybe that'll happen today or tomorrow. In the meantime, there's just one that's been an initial Helm chart that's been bundled up with the current version of layer 5 cloud.
Okay.
And so if we go to layer 5 cloud, we sign in. What is that current version? Where would we even? I guess the one that's currently deployed in production is this one, V0782. Uzair, I believe that we have released a .83, unless my memory is off. And so I don't know that that release made it all the way to production. But so there's a new Helm chart. Yeah. And so, all right, well then, so Sangram has an understanding of the conceptual stuff that we're talking about. So great. So, hey, what are the next steps? Well, there's a documentation site, docs.layer5.io.
Yeah.
There is a set of, we need to make the docs that maybe a little easier to reference, but there's a section here to install the Helm chart.
Yeah.
And
this needs to be done once we have access to the staging server, whenever that will be, right?
yeah, that's a great, good point. So right now you could take the cloud Helm chart and deploy to your
Kubernetes. Yeah, got it.
And you could deploy your an instance of Meshery as well, or a Meshery server, and then you could have the full-blown setup, and that would be helpful. Or that would be a great validation. That blah, blah, blah. But then, yep, you're right that there's a few other objectives that we'd like to get to about one, the fact that there is only one deployment of this hosted playground environment, the Meshery playground. And I don't know how broad, and so it's always nice to have a staging environment for all kinds of reasons. But one of the reasons that we really need to get better with staging environments and many more deployments and things is because I'm not sure how much we've discussed this a lot, but it's certainly something that will significantly help our ecosystem. I don't mean Meshery. It'll help Meshery as a project, but it'll help everybody else out there. The CNCF is considering hosting another playground instance and running it as the official CNCF playground for all the projects. Because it's for a bunch of reasons, and those reasons are articulated here. I'll drop a link to this. And so in order to get us there, hey, is this cloud deployment working smoothly? Do we get all the right values that does it work in the environments? What are we doing about taking care of that Postgres container? Wait a second, you said it's just a container, so is it set to scale or not? Or like, what's the, if it has there's a persistent volume configuration, but that's just to a local volume, right? Or what? Hey, what is there not a Postgres operator being used? Like, there's a number of things that we need to do to beat it up and make sure that it's got the right resiliency characteristics, that it's observable as a deployment, and to like try to define what a healthy deployment looks like. In the same vein, leaving cloud aside, if you just take a Meshery server deployment, you get the same questions like, what does a healthy deployment look like? What are the what endpoints, or what are the health metrics that you would want to look at as you go to run an instance of Meshery server inside of a Kubernetes environment? There are particular nuances to a Meshery server deployment that happens inside of a Kubernetes cluster, particularly with respect to the multiplayer capability, the real-time WebSocket, shared WebSockets that happen between anyone who's sharing a session as you're designing So there's the number of. So anyway, there's like a list. There's a list of. Yeah. So we need to get. So while Sangram, you can do a local deployment, sure. Maybe you've got room for it. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't even want. Maybe you got room, but you don't even want to do that. Any which way, getting you access to the environment that we were just discussing, and to basically to like ultimately it'd be real nice if we just went over, got a third bare metal system, get you.
And I guess that will run a separate single node cluster, right?
Yeah, that's the initial thought. Hey, if we're having success and more folks are coming in and using it, and as we go to harden it for potential, deployment as the CNCF's playground, we should probably have a couple of nodes inside that cluster, or we should there's a lot more sophistication that we should bring to it. But yeah, you're right. Starting there as a single node cluster would be, makes a lot of sense. And so one of the action items that I'm taking away from the meeting is to get some resources to Sangram, get another bare metal server out there with Ubuntu on it and credentials. And Sangram, the other docks that we have on the playground, like the current one, is in the Meshery repo under the install folder.
Yeah. I've seen that. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it when you shut me up. It's wonderful. Yeah. So as we go, we should make note of, we should update these docs, so we're, and so the current configuration of the Ubuntu servers that are out there is captured here. There wasn't necessarily a ton of work needed to be done to the servers themselves. And I'll be refreshing this or reviewing just to make sure it's completely fresh. Mr. Sheikh, I don't know if you don't mind ensuring that the Nginx configuration, or no, I'm sorry. Never mind. I'm confusing two things. Never mind. I'm confusing the Docker host and how it's configured. That's something else. Great. I also owe Sangram a link to that Helm chart. And I think it was just published earlier on this meeting. I think it's up. Did we miss anything, Sangram, or did we miss anything, Uzair?
The link should be in the docs layer 5 Kubernetes.
Yeah, and my fear is that it needs a quick update. Like, it is published here, that Helm chart. I don't there isn't a convenient index of it, but anyway, yep, it'll be there. I'll make sure that it's clear that the instructions are. Also, I think right now, Mr. Sheikh, these instructions, I think, support deployment using some manifests, and maybe a combination of manifests and Helm chart.
Yeah, for provisioning a persistent volume, we need to deploy a manifest other than else's Helm chart.
And okay, is that stuff that I wonder if that's not things that we shouldn't look to potentially incorporate into the chart itself?
I think having persistent volume as a separate thing is ideal, because many of the cluster administrator would be responsible for how the persistent volume should be, because many of the charts that I've seen follows that practice. But Sangram might have a better idea of maybe.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'll spend some time maybe over the weekend to set up a cluster and kind of get a hang of how the Helm chart is at the moment, and probably iron out any issues to begin with, and then gradually we can bring in best practices or whatever that is, to make it more stable, you can say.
Good. I think so. Mario has to take off, and actually, we're just at time. So I didn't mean to subsume, take over the host role, but did we? Other topics, other questions, things that we didn't cover today that we need to? Hey, Henry, we didn't get a chance to say hi, I don't think. But Henry, if you're still here, did you get a chance to get introduced to kind of find a place to hook in on the project somewhere? Uzair, did we miss anything?
I think we covered all those things. There are a few items like number one item, the populating Meshery catalog with a robust set of designs. Maybe Henry can chime in here and start with this. Not sure.
Henry, you still with us?
Shubham, like do you want to like add anything on number two, like developing new Meshery relationships? Like how they can start
Yeah.
with and what is the procedure?
Like for defining the new relationships, like I'm already working on the relationships like for the new components, but like if we're talking about the new type of relationships, we need to discuss it more. Like I need to think more about it. I currently don't have an idea like what new type of relationships, because like most of the relationships we are writing now, they are coming into the inventory category. So like we can branch out the inventory category more.
Yeah, for like but I'm asking like for new folks like who want to like work on this area, so how they can contribute.
Okay, so the Meshery, like the model specs, they like mention how we can get started with the relationships part, but like working for the relationship between two components, like we need to have a fair idea. Like we can use the like the Helm charts, like which are already present. So to get the idea about the component and how they interrelate between each other. So like we can the docs need to be updated, yes, and I and Ripple are already working on that. And once that gets corrected, like more and more people can come in and contribute to the relationships part.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, gents. Hey, thanks for hanging out a little bit over time. It was nice. Deepak, if you've got items or things that you want to follow up on, don't hesitate. And the discussion forum is really nice because everything eventually gets lost in Slack since the history goes away. But all right, very good. So the next time we meet, I think there's a websites call or front end call on Monday. But we'll see you guys all back in Slack. See you there.